Welcome everyone to a special Pom and Fazz EPL show where we try and discuss the undiscussable, which was the greatest Premier League. So I don't want anyone to say 1971 Stockport County or something. Premier League side of all time. As always, if it's the Pom and Fazz show, I'm joined by Fazz. Fazz, mate, I'm going to introduce you as the only person in this chat whose team doesn't need Brasso to shine European trophies.
Yes, well, look, when you said we're doing the greatest Premier League team of all time, I thought, geez, I'm the odd one out here, obviously. But then next week, aren't we doing the greatest European team of all time? And obviously West Ham will feature heavily in that. But yeah, it's good to be here.
Hey, and then as the host, the founder, the godfather of the Weekend Grill, and also massive Liverpool fans. So everyone make sure that you've locked your car up because he is in chat and it's getting nicked. Adrian, welcome to the channel, my friend.
Pommy, good.
Hey, we're looking forward to this bit of banter, and
of course, it's good.
And then, as always, we're joined by the man with the longest surname in the history of social media. I'll have a crack at it. Ari Stamanakos, the Greek legend, Chelsea superfan, two-footed podcast host, Mr. Ari. How are you doing?
I'm very well, my friend. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Do you know what I mean? I'm looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to this. And then we've got Mr. Invincible himself in the all-white, the ever-changing background, Arsenal superfan. He's even put Highbury train station so he knows where it is. Mr. Paolo, how are you doing?
Arsenal train station. You get off, you walk to the right, and that's where Emirates Stadium is. Very good evening to you, gentlemen and ladies in the chat as well. I'm actually looking forward to this. I actually sent off the squads to a couple of mates just to. I'm like, I've got a project and something for you to do, and they struggled big time. It's actually an engaging topic.
I think the only hard one is Fazz. Fazz is representing Man City. As you know, like their history, their fan base didn't exist pre-2015. So finding anyone legally old enough to be awake at this time was a nightmare. So Fazz will do the honours of being Man City.
The irony when you said that I was doing Man City is I've probably actually watched more Man City games than actual Man City supporters. So that's pretty good.
Huge dub. But we start with the one that's always going to debate, and we'll start with Paolo. Take us through the Arsenal Invincible 11.
What a team. Honestly, this is just... What do you say about this team? I think that the only real, and I'll address the negatives first, probably the only real question marks are potentially the centre-back and right-back position in Loren and Kolo Toure. But, I mean, and Matt, look, people say the City Centurions are better and how did this team not win a Champions League? And I get all that, but for me it's the way this team was set up and the way that Wenger philosophized this whole invincible era. He actually told the English media and he told the world that this team is good enough to go undefeated in a season. And look, I understand the whole 12 draws argument and they didn't score as many points as the City team we've seen over the last, 5 or 6 seasons, but they're two different eras as well. And, Wenger was at the forefront and had to come up against the greatest Premier League manager of all time in Sir Alex Ferguson and, did him over. No one was competing with Manchester United for years and years and years. And and Arsene Wenger comes along with this team in the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s, and 03-04 was just the cherry on top of what was an incredible football club. And I think they brought proper football back to London because it had been up north for God knows how long with United. And there's some underrated players in this team as well. Have you heard the story about Kolo Toure, lads? I think this is the reason the Invincibles team should just be par for course the number one team in Premier League history. So Kolo Toure was actually never originally part of Arsene Wenger's plans, and he was actually asked to come and train with the club as a trial player. And in his first trial at the club, they started doing match simulation practice. And I think this typifies what Arsene Wenger was all about. There was a 50-50 ball and he clattered into Thierry Henry, and Thierry Henry went off limping in a training session. And then I think he might have clattered Dennis Bergkamp, and Wenger's called for the stoppage to play, like, just relax, it's training. Went up to Colo and said, look, mate, just take it easy. Just relax. Like, it's just a training run. We know you can play. Just bring it down a notch. Play goes on. They restart, and the ball lands at Arsene Wenger's feet, and he 2-foots Arsene Wenger and clatters him. Absolutely cleans him up. And Wenger's gone down writhing in pain. And the assistant managers go up to us and say, are you okay? Like, this guy, he's coming for a trial. He's nuts. And he just said about Colo, he goes, I like his determination. And he signed him up after all that. And I think that's what typifies the squad. As much as you've got all these classy players, I think this team was underrated in its facet of physicality, because that's what Manchester United had. As much as they had all this talent around the pitch, Roy Keane set a physical edge in that era, which Arsenal matched and probably evolved and got better at over time. So you can't underestimate a team that goes undefeated in the Premier League, because no one's done it. No one has done it. They stand alone. They stand alone with this Gold Cup, and the FA itself has said, you're the only team that gets granted a Gold Cup because of this achievement.
It was nice of them to give you a Kinder Egg trophy, I suppose, wasn't it?
Well, it's got 24-karat gold. It looks very nice. No one else has got it. Everyone else can get a Kinder Egg trophy.
Preston North End want to know where theirs was from the 19th century as well. But Ari, we'll start with you. He's London rival, right? I want from each of you one player there that you're going to give some credit, and then any question for Paolo. So looking at that.
Can I have a caveat on this?
What?
Can't be Thierry Henry.
well, I'll try and do a different player, but Ari, a player that you would think slots into your side, and a question for Paolo of maybe praise or maybe negativity. I'll leave that up to the esteemed panel.
Either way.
So, the player, I think, a little bit biased. I want to try and get as much Chelsea in it as possible. Obviously, go straight to left back, and Ashley Cole. I've probably known a little bit more for, obviously, the transfer and the move. And obviously, people probably do look at his Chelsea career a little bit more. But I think people forget how good he was at Arsenal and in this team, and just how crucial he was, to this system. And just how he was able to complement Ljungberg on that left-hand side and be not an exactly modern-day fullback, but just be so solid in almost every facet. So, yeah, Ashley Cole, you can look at the likes of Bergkamp and Ljungberg and Perez and all these players, but yeah, Ashley Cole is a player that I'll give praise to, and I'll highlight out of this squad. And a question just for Paolo, just yes. Refresh my memory. How'd you go in the Champions League in this season?
I know, see, that's what everyone raises, but we're talking Premier League, aren't we?
No, it was just a question.
We're talking Premier League, though, aren't we? Are you talking the Champions League that we lost, or how we went in the Champions League during the week?
The 03-04 Champions League season. Yeah.
Lehmann gets sent off, and we're 1-0 up, and it's hard to play with 10 men against Barcelona. Just ask Gary Neville.
Right. Okay.
They're not easy to win these European trophies. They're not easy to win.
Yeah, I'd beg to differ, but that's okay.
Well, when you've got a Russian oligarch who stole his money for a living, then I kind of understand.
Don't hate the player at the game, mate.
We've got legitimate businessmen running our club.
Don't hate the player at the game, my friend.
Not played.
Fazz, we've lost Adrian ever since Ari was bigging up Ashley Cole. Obviously, Robertson is prime for left back, but a player there that you think slots into the Man City side that we're going to talk about soon, and a question for Paolo.
A player there that slots into the Man City side? None.
You can have anyone but Ashley Cole.
Yeah, absolutely none. Not a single one of those players would slot into the Man City side.
Not one.
Not a single one. And I'll explain why. We talk about this. This is the worst good team of all time, potentially. But I want you to do me a favor here, right? I want you to defend.
Liverpool have Fabinho in midfield in their title-winning team.
That's fine. I want you to defend Robert Perez for me because, to be honest, of all the teams we're about to see, that must be the worst winger in all the teams we're about to see. So defend him for me. Defend him.
Type in Robert Perez versus Aston Villa.
One game. One game. All right. Let me.
No right winger in the competition can score the goal that he did. But see, Perez was not. His career at Arsenal was not. I mean, over his expansive career at Arsenal, it was not. It was probably only 2 or 3 seasons where he was absolutely unbelievable. And I mean, 03-04, that's what we're talking about. He was probably the best right winger in the league at that point in time.
Yep, but you're talking about that point in time. We're talking about the teams, comparing team to team.
Okay, so who are you comparing him to? That's the question.
Every single winger we're about to look at.
Okay.
So, yeah. But look, I'll take your defense, but it's, you said before we can't mention Henry.
Do you know what he was, Faz? I'll tell you what he was. He was a very, very different winger to what we see today and a very different winger to what we saw at the time. He wasn't as rapid. He wasn't as aggressive. He wasn't as fast. But his smarts were just everywhere, all over the pitch. His body position, his touch on the ball. I felt like everything that he may lack in a winger today, speed-wise, and everything he might have lacked in a winger back in those days, he just made up with his positioning. He was just, I know, the way he worked in that team was just incredible. That's how I looked at it, and it's hard to compare now till then. But
you call it as you call it. You obviously have to work well in that team because they were undefeated. But unfortunately, you put the caveat at the start about not mentioning Henry. The fact is, he would get in to the Man City side, but I can't say that because you put the caveat on it. Bergkamp, tell me about his season. This season.
Well,
that season. Yeah.
Thierry Henry doesn't do what he does. See, this is when Dennis was sort of starting to be at the twilight of his career. But I actually felt filthy putting my team together, not putting him in. The man was just a lot of people, and I completely agree with them in this. A lot of people say he's Arsenal's best ever, even with Henry in that team. He's the man that made things tick over up front. He was the creative genius, really, when you think about it. And even in that year as well, without him in behind Thierry, like a lot of the things that we see that Henry did wouldn't have been capable or wouldn't have occurred if he wasn't in there. That's the question.
I guess, well, it's a great question because I think when you go to look at the combined team overall, I know in my head, I'm thinking of Bergkamp outside of this year. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so that's where it's the difficult, and we're all going to find that difficult when you think of Dennis Bergkamp. He's one of the greatest players of all time. How can he not be in your best team? But we're talking about this exact year. So that's what that question needs to be taken into account. But what a player. Obviously, what a player.
Yeah, of course. I think he ended up, I think in this particular year, I'm just trying to think, how many goals did he score, positions played? I think he only scored the
7 out of 21.
7 out of 21. Yeah. So he was referred to as, I think Arsene Wenger referred to him as the conductor. I think he might have referred to him as something like that, where he was the man that just made everything flow. He was a man that made everything occur up front as well. And like I said, I think at this point in his career, he was starting to reach the twilight, if that makes sense. I think his greatest ever seasons were probably a little bit before this as well. But I mean, the man just oozes class, doesn't he? Like, God, the word class, he is that. And I know it's what is class, but it's his touch on the ball and the way he set up goals are just incredible. Absolutely. His football IQ was just through the roof.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, he passed and you can look at numbers, right? And look, you need stats to back up what your premise is, but he passed the eye test on every occasion.
Yeah.
Beautiful footballer.
This team, I have had fights with this team. I reckon I've probably hit more people in a bar over this team than any other thing. in my life. And like, if you ever look up hate, I see hate here. But I've got to say, as I've got older, I've learned to appreciate this team for what it is, because it probably gave, in my opinion, there is 3 teams in this conversation, Man United, Chelsea and Arsenal, who at the time made the greatest Premier League. I don't think the Premier League will ever see an era where 3 sides are so close, so tight, so well coached, 3 big personalities of coaches who didn't like each other, 3 teams that didn't like each other. We're in an era where the England team probably had the best team on paper in the world, and because of its club rivalry, could never play football together. And I look at this, and I can't take Thierry Henry because Paulo's done it. Fazz has taken Bergkamp. Ari took Cashley Cole. For me, it's the most underrated player in the world at the time, and I think it's Gilberto Silva. And it might surprise some people.
I love this.
Vieira, people will look at Vieira, great battles with Keena, but I always look at the job Gilberto Silva did on, in my opinion, other than Gerrard, the best midfielder the Premier League has seen doing what he does. And Gilberto Silva, I swear, when Paul Scholes played this guy, Gilberto Silva was holding his dick when he was taking a piss. This guy, literally, I've never seen a guy with his work rate, his tenacity, his ability to win the ball back. 90 minutes he would give you. He was always a player when Arsenal were playing United. I knew Keano would take Vieira. I was confident of that. I was confident of Vidic and Ferdinand being able to stifle Thierry to an extent. The one that always annoyed me was Gilberto. He could take away that ball. He always never gave Paul Scholes space. So for me, Silva, I would have had him in the side over Owen Hargreaves and or Carrick if I could. So, and I love both Owen Hargreaves and him. My question for you, Paolo, is obviously it's the elephant in the room, right? I remember this team well, and I do remember, I'm not ashamed to admit, I pissed myself laughing when Wenger said they'd go undefeated. I was like, what a muppet. Can't wait to stiff these boys at Old Trafford. My bugbear with this is around the turn of March, it was really obvious that you guys were going not just for the title, but one hand in mind. And I know United, we were focused on the Champions League at this stage. We imploded. Chelsea gave it a good chance, but they were their own worst enemies. I always got the impression that Wenger was the godfather of Sean Dice Ball. And I think this side is far too good to have that many draws. And I think in the last 10 games, I've got it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 draws. It was, and one of them was against Leicester, who were relegated. It felt like you weren't playing to win, you were playing not to lose. And do you think that goes against you? Because in my opinion, the other 4 sides we're going to see risk losing points for 3 points.
Well, the one thing that, and it's a fair argument too, I think the one thing to look at as well is points tally. When they compare Premier League winning teams to the Arsenal one, you look at the points tally and the amount of draws as well. And I think it is a pull on the team, I think. And then I know it's not to do with the Premier League, but I think the pull on the team as well was never winning a Champions League trophy as well. So maybe there is a slight pull on that with regards to Premier League performances and maybe the fact that the Premier League back then was not as competitive as it was as it is now. But even then, like Manchester City and Liverpool have dominated the league, you know, for the last handful of seasons. So you do usually get through teams that gap the rest, I think. But I think ultimately with this team, there's a duck egg in the loss column. Like it just doesn't happen. Like even if you play dodgeball, say you don't play or say you're playing to win every single time, right? And you do win those games. And then there's a time where you're playing not to lose. Even to not lose is still a big, like they didn't lose a game. Even if you play, like even Dodgeball loses with Dodgeball and he's playing to not lose, if that makes sense. So I think, it's such a, like you look at Manchester City, this team, they've had Centurions, they've had this team that's defending champions, and they lost to Wolves. Pedro Neto put their left back in a spliff. Like, you know, that Korean guy scored for them, as Pep quoted. They didn't even know who he was. Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, that Korean guy. It's just,
put some respect in Lee Hee-chan's name.
You know what? This is what I think. I think too much emphasis has been placed on the draws and not enough emphasis has been placed on the fact that they did not lose a game with opposition fans. Look, there's two schools of thoughts. People will have their opinion either way. So all I know is the only team in the Premier League era to be undefeated. And as far as I'm concerned, I highly doubt we'll see it for a long, long time, if ever.
I think like no one's disputing that. Like that is an incredible thing. We'll never. I don't think we'll ever see it again. But I think and this is hypotheticals, of course. All this is hypotheticals. But I look at all the teams that we're about to look at, and you say one more loss or two more losses to those teams, and they're probably still in this conversation. Where I think if Arsenal lose one game, they're not even in this conversation. They're only in this conversation because of the record, pound for pound, player for player, and that's obviously like it's a great record. And I made the comment on Twitter today. You can't have this conversation without them being in it by the pure fact they had this record. Like it's incredible.
You know, my argument is this, right? And it sounds like I reek of jealousy, and I don't. But
with your Manchester United top on.
I would just like on the record that I am extraordinarily jealous of everyone here. So I just want that on the record.
Okay. My argument is I feel like being undefeated, although a great achievement, and I'd love to hear Ari's opinion because we're going to go to a team that I actually think is phenomenal what they did, because I think it's the second difficultest thing that we're going to discuss, how to win a league. And it pains me to say that United are in that top two, is if you get 38 draws, you still achieve what Arsenal do, but you probably finish just above Everton, right? What the other four sides are done, you can't have that argument. And that is my only issue. And from watching every game, it was amazing. My argument is that the last 10 weeks, they played not to lose, where the other teams we discussed played to destroy the competition.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it.
No, that's a fair argument. It's a fair argument, but still playing not to lose and still not losing is still an achievement in itself if that was the mindset. So I think that's probably the argument the other way, isn't it?
Far be it from me to poo-poo a draw. All right, I love a draw as much as the next person.
So do I now. So do I now as well.
You guys are talking. Have you seen our lot?
I've just seen all the.
We scored 2 goals on the weekend.
All the draws are firm this weekend. They've all come in.
We scored 2 goals on the weekend. I just in the same game.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Oh, tears in the eyes.
You know what is heartbreaking? Only one person in this chat has any reason to be happy with their team. It's actually torture for me and Ari. This is.
It's a joke.
I'm pretty happy.
But I gave them a big up. I actually think you go from the Invincibles. Chelsea were the young superpower in the league, the sleeping giant. Arsenal, Man United had dominated it for a fair few times. This mysterious little Portuguese bloke who looked like your auntie's sexy new boyfriend came in and he destroyed the stranglehold. And in my opinion, this is second only to the Liverpool side in difficulty to do because they came from nowhere. Yes, they spent a lot of money because they had a right-wing owner who was ripping off poor people in Ukraine. But you can't argue with the fact that they did it and they did it well. And this was probably one of my favourite years to watch football. So, Ari, take us away, the Chelsea side.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of places to start. I'd like to just to cast our minds back to about 15 minutes ago when Fazz was having a big dig at Robert Pires about the worst winger we're going to see in these teams. Just Damien Duff is there. I don't know how, but he's there. So, I mean, credit to him, if anything.
I'll wear that.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, where do you start with this? 15 goals conceded for the whole Premier League season. One slightly dodgy Nicholas Anelka penalty away from going invincible, and I'd be interested to see what the conversation it would be now if he'd missed and we had drawn that game 0-0 and Chelsea are invincible and finished the season with 96 points, I think it would have been. But yeah, just it's a team that probably doesn't have that many like proper stars. I mean, when you look at players who are world class for a long period of time, you look at Lampard, Drogba, Robben, but not really for Chelsea. So people kind of underestimate that a little bit. Terry, a player that stalwart for Chelsea for a long time, and obviously Petr Cech, who really announced himself, I think, this season and was a world-class Premier League keeper for years to come until he went to Arsenal, and then we didn't talk about that. But yeah, it's just so much alike. so much alike about this team. I mean, the player that I look at, which I think it may be a little bit weird, but I look straight to defensive midfield and look at Claude Makélélé and how integral he was to changing. To helping Jose Mourinho change English football in a way, because a lot of teams were playing 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, playing that two banks of four. Mourinho changes things up, puts an extra man in midfield, and all of a sudden there was just a man free every single time Makélélé had the ball, whether it was Lampard, Cole, whether he was up front to Drogba. So I think he was so integral to changing, I think, the way that football was played. And I think you go back and credit Jose Mourinho, having won the Champions League at Porto the year before, I think it would have been, coming to England, winning the League Cup in January. So his first opportunity to win a trophy, he won it. And that famous interview of him being very adamant that he wasn't feeling the pressure, which I think aged very well when you look back at his career, especially that season. So yeah, he was. Yeah, I think the way you described it, Pom, the new auntie's new boyfriend really had that feel about it. Just this charismatic, classy, but also had that like rough side to him, which you knew that if he had to get rough and if he had to get into a scrap, you know that he'd be in your corner. So yeah, just so much to like about this team.
Lads, I'll start. The player that I'd keep is, I think, of all the teams we're going to discuss, I hate to say this, but I think the best player who gets into everyone's team is Didier Drogba for his big game capabilities. This guy, seen him in cup finals, Champions League knockouts, never had a bad game. Like, if he would be in the conversation for me, gun to my head, someone you will die if your side doesn't win. You've got to pick a player from the past. Didier Drogba is straight away up top, because for some reason this guy could play Wimbledon away and be dog shit, but you put him at the Nou Camp away, the guy turns into an absolute beast. I've never seen a player, probably until we had Haaland in the Premier League, who could bully, outpace, outjump, outshoot a defender. And Didier Drogba, when he was on, I don't think there's ever been a striker in the Premier League as brutal as Didier Drogba is one-on-one. He was a beast. He was a nightmare, that guy. Full credit to him.
Yeah, partly the reason why this top is on right now. I think when a lot of people think of this top, they think of Drogba. Obviously, in that year and even later on, some of the goals that he was able to score, he could do everything. Could be a poacher, but could take the ball from 30 yards and bang it. Could take free kicks. Just so well-rounded. Obviously, people potentially look at the goal records and think I didn't score as many goals as other strikers, but I think when you look at everything else that he did, I think it really puts into perspective just how good he was. And yeah, obviously, Mourinho was a big advocate for him. Obviously, he basically had unlimited money and could have gone and bought any striker in the world that he basically wanted. And it was like, no, I'm going to poach this guy from France, from League One, and the rest is history, I guess. So yeah, one of definitely in the kind of upper echelons and in the Mount Rushmore of Chelsea players, especially in the Premier League era.
Well, my question is, obviously we know you're the record holders, 15 goals in a 38-game season, ridiculous. And that's Mourinho's. And only Arsenal and the United side we're going to talk about come within 7 of it in the record. Like United were 22, I think, in our year, and that felt ridiculous at less than half a goal a game. Do you think, though, that, and this is my negativity of seeing Mourinho coach my United boys, that the negative football, this side falls into the Arsenal category somewhat of for a side with so much talent was sometimes like watching paint dry.
Right. Well, I guess it definitely is a fair criticism to a certain extent. Obviously, it also depends on where you're looking at in terms of kind of goal, like in terms of like the objective of football, right? So Paolo was going on about trying not to lose, which is obviously a certain way of going about it. Obviously, you don't win trophies by you don't win trophies by trying not to lose. You win trophies by trying to accumulate the most points as possible, right? So I think trying to do that by any means necessary is the main objective, which is probably a credit to Arsenal and their invincible team in itself. But obviously, Chelsea scored 72 goals in the Premier League this season. Arsenal scored 73 the year before. So when you take a look at how, I mean, if we're going to compare the team that we just saw, when you take a look at how revered and how revered now talked about the Invincibles are, 73 goals in the Premier League season for them, 72 for Chelsea. I think it puts into perspective that while Chelsea weren't scoring goals at scoring goals all the time and just this super free flowing attacking team, I don't think it can be conjured up as a major criticism, especially when we look at the team that we'll look at next in United, who scored 80 goals in their Premier League season. So it really is kind of, I wouldn't say clutching at straws because it's obviously a fair criticism, but I think you got to focus on the positives, I feel.
70 goals, 80 goals, mate. Wake me up when the big boys start to play.
Well, Fazz,
wearing a West Ham.
I've got to no, but I'm Man City. I'm defending Man City tonight. Right? That's my role. Oh dear.
Fazz, which player do you think gets in the City team? There's one there who has played for the City team.
That City team. Oh, you know what? Actually, and this is only recency bias because he's absolutely reamed me in my fantasy. Peter Cech gets in the City team for Edison because he's dog shit.
I like it. I like it. I like it,
mate. Look, I have a question. Look, I'm gonna just put it out there. I didn't watch much of this season because if anyone is aware, West Ham at this stage were in the Championship. So I was more focused on that football rather than watching this season. But my question to you is, Ari, do you think Scott Parker was pretty stiff not to get more games for this Chelsea side?
Is he going to replace Claude Makélélé?
No.
Well, that's the answer you want to do. Yeah.
Could you push Joe? Like, all right, where was Joe Cole's best position? Like, could you have changed formations a little bit and squeezed Scott Parker in there?
I don't think something that ain't broke. That's my philosophy. That's my philosophy.
Fair.
Mate, Joe Cole's best position was outside of the box versus Sweden in the World Cup.
Yeah,
that's where you want him. Chest it down, bombs it top corner. That's where you want him.
Fair question, though. I appreciate that first.
No, always got to add a little bit of West Ham in there. There's a nice West Ham vibe.
Mate, there's two ex-Arsenal players. Well, one soon-to-be Arsenal player, one ex-Arsenal player. Thoughts on this team? Which one would you say would make the Invincibles?
Oh, it's got to be Fat Frank, doesn't it?
Fat Frank.
It's got to be Fat Frank, doesn't it? I think you can potentially, I think just what we knew with what occurred with Thierry Henry and the fact that he could float out to a wing, you could potentially take out you'd have to change your formation, obviously, but you could take out one of Ljungberg and Perez and slot Lampard into the middle of the park. I think he was just, just an incredible midfielder, really. And this was really only him starting to get to the peak of his powers, I think. I loved him. He did it at either end, goal-scoring midfielder. And I as much as I despise him because he's in the blue, you can't undersell what he did for that Chelsea team. And you can't also underestimate his leadership qualities as well and where he came from great grounding, West Ham, of course. The great Mr. Redknapp declaring him as a star of the future, and that really came to fruition. And For me, it's Fat Frank. I absolutely love him as a footballer. I think he's incredible.
And he still holds the goal scoring record for Chelsea as well. So that's
incredible.
As a midfielder, that's enormous.
Just an incredible footballer. The one question I have, is to you, Ari, Lampard or Gerrard? That is, it has been the old age debate for years and years and years and years. Yeah. Both Englishmen, both incredible, both played in the middle of the park. Lampard has the Premier League medal over him. Of course, you can't really determine what team you play for, but I guess that's not always out of your control. But I think, look, Stevie G was unbelievable, but maybe Frankie's just got the edge over him because of the PL medal.
Well, it's definitely a conversation that I think we could be doing another show, another hour-long show speaking about. I definitely think that it's a conversation that, yes, it's been spoken about ad nauseum, but I still feel like it's got some validity to it just because of both how good they were. I think Lampard finished runners up in the Ballon d'Or around about this time, so I think that is probably proof of the pudding of just how good he was, especially quite early on in his career. Gerrard, probably a little bit more well-rounded. If you're talking about defensively, can probably play a little bit more as a defensive midfielder, whereas Lampard probably couldn't drop any further back than as a pure central midfielder. But then again, Lampard can play as a 10 if you really want him to and score bags of goals. So if I have this theory, and it's something that as my brother being a Liverpool supporter, it's a conversation that's been had a lot of times in the household. If I was to take 11 versions of one footballer and try to get the best team, I think 11 Steven Gerrards would be a pretty hard team to stop. Defensively, offensively, can hit a set piece, really tall, strong, pretty quick in his prime as well. I think that 11 Gerrards would be hard to stop in comparison to 11 Lampards. However, I just think Lampard just had that little bit extra, which is always going to, probably there's a little bit of bias as a Chelsea supporter. Obviously, I'm going to favour him, but yeah, I would have to say Lampard, and also Steven Gerrard tried to leave Liverpool twice and then Chelsea, so I think that maybe says a lot.
Yeah, that's the argument against that in favour of Gerrard would probably be the fact that he was just the shining light in the Liverpool team that just wasn't, from a Premier League perspective, they just weren't there. They weren't there, and he was the shining light in all of that. And he got them to a Champions League final with that incredible come from behind victory, and that's probably what holds him in good stead as well. That's probably the argument against him over Lampard.
I think Lampard's ability to keep his feet in critical moments, I think sets him above Gerrard. Jeez, that felt seamless.
That was brilliant.
It took me a minute to clock. It took me a minute to clock.
I agree with Adam here. I actually think John Terry gets into the Arsenal side. No one talks about John Terry.
I think John Terry is one of the more underrated centre-halves in Premier League history. His ability with the ball at his feet is extremely underrated.
I just love Carlo Toure so much because of that story. That's why.
Well, Fazz, you've wanted excitement. You've slagged him off. Right. A lot of people in the comments were asking about 99 Man United, and great argument. I was 13 years old, and they are like your wife. They are the woman you marry, the 99 United side. They're the side that you always want to go home to every night and fall asleep with. But when you were 21, why you're a good husband is because you were 21 and you went to Bali on a 2-week finding yourself holiday when you were a single man, and you met a Swedish exchange student, and you had 2 weeks of tantric meditation. And that is what this United side are. This United side are the most complete side for me in Premier League history. This side here are the only ones we're going to talk about, with the exception of Liverpool, to come against competition in more than one. We had to beat prime Chelsea, prime Arsenal, but all of them were probably worthy Premier League winners. This, I think, is Alex Ferguson's masterclass that he managed to get not only the Premier League, but also one of the only teams featured here to go on to win a Champions League title. And the year after, back it up. We've nearly becoming the first team since the great 80s Milan side and the great 80s Nottingham Forest side have gone back-to-back in the World Cup. And incredible, in the Champions League, incredible. Difficult achievement. But I look at this team here and I think it's class all the way through. You've got to remember at this stage, United were going through a little bit of a formative. We had Solskjaer retire, Gabriella Hines left. It was post Mercurial Keane a couple of years ago, leaving to Celtic. And this United was almost a rebuild United after that 2 seasons of monotony from Arsenal and Chelsea. We came back. And you look at this side here. This side was, in my opinion, it could score goals, it could defend, it was attacking. It's the 3rd least goals conceded in Premier League history. And it's the only side that features a Ballon d'Or winner. And in my opinion, Cristiano Ronaldo in this year, if he hadn't got injured a couple of years later, you would have the conversation of Messi who. He was that good. There has never been a player in the Premier League as young as him and as long as him. You've got to remember Henry and all that crap. He's the best ever. He did his formation at other leagues. This guy came in as a kid, playing a handful of times at Sporting Lisbon, and he pulled the Premier League apart and became the best player in the world at this point of his career. Carlos Tevez, workhorse, Wayne Rooney. We talk about Bergkamp. Wayne Rooney is the only player in the Premier League history that's like Bergkamp. He made everyone better around him. And then to go back in his later years and play central midfield, brilliant. Owen Hargreaves and Carrick, very good footballers. Ferdinand Vidic, no forward wanted to play him. And any side that wins the EPL and the UCL with Wes Brown at right back is in the conversation of best team ever formatted. I will field your questions for these 11 heroes.
I'll
Faz,
go
start
first.
with you, 'cause you're mean.
Yep. Yeah, can you really be the best team in the Premier League era when you lose to West Ham in a season? 29th of December.
Fucking hell, Faz. You've got it written down. Is it a tattoo?
That 29th of December 2007, Cristiano Ronaldo opened the scoring, but it was Anton Ferdinand to equalise and Matty Upson for the winner. So
Matty Upson, oh wow.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
So that's my question. Can you be the best team in the Premier League era if you've lost to West Ham around about the time? Newly promoted West Ham, might I add. Yeah.
From memory, though, didn't we win the title 4-1 against you? The second last game of the year. Absolutely pulled you apart.
Well, we're not...
Even brought Ronaldo on at half-time on a hat-trick, so he was rested for the Champions League.
Yeah, look, I mean, the season was still alive back in December. So. Yeah, just a bit of tongue-in-cheek. All seriousness, though, I reflect back and I'll say that this was the team that kind of put the Premier League on the map where I was growing up. Like, people who grew up with the sport knew of the Premier League and would watch it, but this was the one that this was the season that got your new people to the game because of Ronaldo, because of Rooney. And so I always remember fondly of this in high school. And well, actually, no, this was my last year at high school, so I was in year 12. And geez, we spoke about this a lot, living in country Victoria, very pro AFL, area, very limited soccer knowledge. This was the one that really put it on the map. So I do have a special place in my heart for this team. I just can't.
Oh, no.
I love him, obviously, but Tevez there just doesn't look right for me. I don't know why. It's just, was there a better option to make this team look a little bit sexier?
Well, this was at the time that we strayed away from the 4-4-2, and a lot of people were stagnating, saying Fergie had stagnated. So he used to line up in a 4-4-3 to start the game, and you found that the front three became what you see all the time now. You'd have Ronaldo go central, Rooney would drift out wide, Tevez would go into the central position, Rooney would play off him. Rooney was kind of like Bergkamp was for Arsenal, where that wasn't a fixed role. He just slot into the holes. Ronaldo would cut inside and Tevez would be more central. It was very free-flowing in the forward line. And we never strayed from the 4-4-2, particularly defending, but that was usually where he'd start, the left-hand side, playing off Rooney. And it got the best out of Rooney. For me, in 2007, if you did the Ballon d'Or correctly, even though Ronaldo won it, Rooney would have been second. Like, these two were the best players on the planet Earth at this time.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. It just, on the flat picture, it just doesn't look right. But when you explain it that way, it makes a lot of sense.
Which of these players would get in your City team? And why is it Wes Brown?
Yeah. Look, I'm going to say, I'll say someone, in my opinion, the most underrated player in the history of the Premier League. And I say underrated. That's Michael Carrick. I think he was doing the dirty work that made everyone else look sexy. He was just your workhorse. When he's your typical, you look up Michael Carrick's highlights reels, they're not great.
It's him walking on the pitch.
Yeah. But he, when you have Carrick playing the way he does, I think he would slot in to the City team that I've got. Yeah. In fact, I think Carrick would slot into any team in any era, in any league, because of just the way he played. He just did the dirty work to make everyone else better around him.
The ultimate 6 out of 10 footballer. No, I agree, Faz. Yeah. I appreciate that. Ari, which player makes the Chelsea team? Before you be mean and ask a question.
Well, actually, my question was actually going to be how underrated was Michael Carrick, but I think that's been covered. So thanks, guys.
No worries.
I think I might bend the rules a little bit. I'll kick Damien Duff out. I don't know why he's there. And if Ronaldo can play on the left, he'll be right. He's good enough. He can do it. He's a big boy. Yeah, I mean, just do you really have to explain just how good he was in that year? I think obviously that was the year that, like you said, that was arguably pound for pound one of his better years in his career, just because of how dynamic he was. That was probably peak in terms of his pace, his ability to take a man on, his ability to finish. Obviously, in the latter stages of his career, he transitioned into more a pure number 9 and being like a poacher. This was probably Ronaldo being as a pure winger / inside forward, cutting him from the right hand side or from the wing, and was just so good. Looking like reading back, listening to people speak about him from this year, watching some of the games back from this year, he was just exceptional. So yeah, I'd kick Duff out and move Ronaldo across to the other side.
Right, I like it. And have you got any questions about this super horse side?
So yeah, my question was going to be about Carrick, but I'll actually just move a little bit over and speak about Owen Hargreaves. He obviously spent a lot of time in Germany, obviously with Bayern Munich, comes over not long before this season. In fact, it might have actually been this season. You look at that midfield two of Carrick and Hargreaves, and you think, gee, that's not exactly like David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, I put it that way, right? In terms of technical ability. But that industrious nature, I feel like that would have had to be the real catalyst to allow the likes of Tevez, Rooney, and Ronaldo to really just do whatever they liked, basically, yeah?
I think it's a great question. I'm glad you picked on him because people, you mentioned Lampard and Gerrard. For me, Scholes is in that conversation. The big issue with Scholes is he thought you only crossed the halfway line to change ends. He didn't know there was a defensive area. And once Keano left, who was so protective of him, people forget Keano and Butt used to protect him. Hargreaves and Carrick were the perfect people to protect Scholes to do what he did. And without them, we wouldn't have won as much as we did. Hargreaves, like you say, he had that Bayern Munich upbringing, worked hard up and down the ground. He was like literally the legs of this side. With Carrick as well, both of them underappreciated, not very sexy. But it's a shame. If Hargreaves didn't have the injuries, I would be saying that we could be having a conversation of one of the best of all time for his position. He had that horrible, something Pennicola something in his shin or whatever it was. Like the guy would go up the stairs and he would fold in half like a deck chair. But yeah, he was a terrific footballer, and without him, this doesn't work. Without Hargreaves and Carrick there, this doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's answered the question beautifully. There you go.
Well, Paolo, I mean, I think all but 10 of these players get in your side. All but one.
The one I would replace and kick out of the Arsenal team, and it pains me to say because he's got the best ever football story from a trial in history, is Kolo Toure comes out for Nemanja Vidic. You and I, Pommy, we always say you can't win a Premier League title without a Balkan midfielder, mate. Without a Balkan centre-back, mate, you can't.
Mate,
not nowadays, anyway.
Mate, your centre-backs need to be reared on the tit of depression and suppression, and then you'll have a world-class centre-back. Yeah,
exactly right.
Right.
Questions. I don't really... Questions. How can you question a team? How can you question a team like this? Just look at the names. The only question you have is how do Owen Hargreaves and Wes Brown hold up that right side? that's the only question you have to ask. But I don't know. Look at the team, man. It's just Scholes, Hargreaves and Carrick do the dirty work in behind Paul Scholes so he can do what he has to do. And for me, the only question is how do Hargreaves and Wes Brown hold up that right-hand side? They did, clearly, but it just, I don't know, it just seems the weak link.
I guess when you're behind, you're behind Ronaldo, yeah.
You just got to sit there. You have to sit there in guard space.
It probably helps that we won a lot of games 5-0 and stuff. So I mean,
not a lot of defending to do.
I mean, this was a shocking year as well because I mean, G Nev, he played no games this year, so this was like the end of his career. He never got right with the injury that he had in pre-season. I mean, Hargreaves was brilliant. I mean, occasionally he's not even in this squad, but Ji-sung Park was around this time, and we did so well in the Champions League deploying him. He was like the worst. We don't have taggers in football, but if there was ever a tagger, this guy, he pocketed some of the best in the world.
Peterlo said he had a horrible time of it playing against him.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like this guy would go up against Lionel Messi, and Lionel Messi still has sleepless nights. Like if you had to say, if his kids ever say, "Can you take me to the park, Dad?" he just screams. But fair point. The left side as you're attacking, our right hand side as you're defending. Wes Brown is underrated though. He wasn't as bad as he looked. He's probably just the one in here that you ask. You'd ask, did you play for the team if they did a meeting? But to be fair, he was reliable. But like you say, at this stage of the career as well, people forget Ronaldo was tracking back. Hargreaves used to slot into there as well. It was a young Ronaldo. It was a Ronaldo before the injuries. So it was a very solid team. And to be fair, Rio Ferdinand and Vidic, you probably didn't leave left and right backs. You could have probably just played the two at the back. These guys were superhuman.
And I just, you've spent the best part of 15 minutes talking about this team and you haven't once said, I love this game. How have we not mentioned Patrice?
Mate, Patrice, what a player. I never forget his debut. Got absolutely hammered against City. And I think that's probably the only bad game ever had. Like, you look at this side, like I really do think all the other players you'll mention had time to adapt. Ronaldo adapted very quickly in a league where he was too... I remember it, the earring. He had this weird bleach blonde ponytail coming down. He wasn't meant to play Premier League ever. Oh, he's come from League One. It's soft. These guys were bullies against men within a season. These guys were heroes used way too much. Now you can cross the road without pressing the light, and everyone's like, "Oh, hero!" These guys are heroes. These guys are heroes.
Absolutely.
Well, take it away, Fazz. We've gone from the best side of Manchester to the pretend side. Talk to me about this side.
All right, the big boys have rocked up. We let you, we gave you, wanted to make it interesting, but the big boys are here. I don't even need to speak. Just look at the team. I mean, we've got to talk about most points. The Centurion, 100 points, right? Not just that, 106 goals they scored. Now, you were talking about, Arsenal 73, Chelsea 72, that great Manchester United team 80. This team scored 106 goals. And you'll talk about conceding, beautiful. Well done, Chelsea. You conceded 15 goals. My hat goes off to you. This team conceded 27 goals, right? 27 goals. It's in this time, whilst you're scoring 106 at the other end. I don't know if many people know how sport works, but when you're attacking, you're pretty loose at the back, yeah? So whilst these guys are scoring 106 goals, they got one bloke defending at the back, and they still only conceded 27. Incredible. And you want to talk about, it's okay, we playing for draws. This team lost 2 games, and those scores were 4-3 and 2-3. This team played to win. They played to score, and they played to entertain. They changed the game forever. You want to talk about best teams of all time? This team changed the game forever because they haven't been beaten since. What does it mean? What did it mean? What does this mean? Like, are we talking about the best competition? You were spilling off shit about, it was a tight comp. Man United had to beat a prime Wenger and Mourinho. Mate, are we talking about the tightest comp or the best team? This team shit on every single person, player, manager that rocked up to their ground. They're the best. They're the biggest. From a personal point of view, it's created a legacy, and I'll explain why. You guys won't understand this. Growing up as a West Ham supporter in Australia, you won't understand this. I'm going to get deep here. Every fucker I know goes for Liverpool, goes for Man United, goes for Chelsea. You know why everyone jumped on board? I go for poor little old West Ham. You know what? I was ecstatic when Man City won the league, and I'll be ecstatic and they keep winning the league. Why? Because it shuts people like the Liverpool fans up, people like the Arsenal, the the Man United, all these fans up who've been giving me shit my whole life about going for West Ham. Long live Man City. This is the best team in the history of the Premier League.
So West Ham's got to go off the success of another team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we're here. What more can I say? I didn't even name the players' names. David Silva. I've even told you who's out there. Sergio Aguero, mate. Some of those goals he scored. Raheem Sterling, whatever. Like Kyle Walker doing his thing. This team got 100 points and scored 106 goals with Fabian Delph. Come on.
Hey, nothing wrong with a bit of Fabian Delph.
So there's Aston Villa fans in the chat.
Mate,
you've got the floor.
Yeah.
Hit me. You guys got the floor.
Cool.
Come on, Paolo, we'll start with you.
Ooh. Who am I taking out to put in this Arsenal team? Ooh, this is very difficult. Very, very difficult. I'm going to go Kyle Walker for Lorraine. I reckon that's a pretty
just a bit
substitution.
Just a bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes, Kyle Walker for Lorraine. Question for this team. How can you question any of this team?
No, exactly right.
Here's one actually. Leroy Sané.
Yes.
Didn't last the trip at Man City. Why? What was all that about?
Just a great team like Man City. Just move on to bigger.
I don't know. How can you look? The only question mark you have is on Fabian Delph, but even he was great in that season. I don't know. Maybe the goalkeeper. God, he didn't even have.
Well, yeah. I'm anti-Edison these days, but
yes.
Look, I just think you just look at that. You compare it to that United team. You had Carrick and Hargreaves, and then this you got David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, like we're talking chalk and cheese there as far as what the players did, but they're incredible.
Here's the question: you can't really choose who your owners are, but a bottomless pit worth of transfers. I mean, it's pretty simple to make a team up like this, isn't it? Keep your West Ham cap on when you answer this.
It's you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It does. Look, money helps. Money helps. It certainly does help. But I'll defend City in that regard. Is the wages are one thing. I actually don't think they overpay transfer fees.
Yes. How about wages and sponsorships and other stuff?
Look, wages are wages, like everyone's on a good wage. It's all good, hard day's work. But yes, look, that's always going to be the question. But, is the question we're asking, richest clubs or are we asking who was the best put together team? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So how they were put together is irrelevant. That is irrelevant. How they were put together, they're still the best team, because then you open a bit of a can of worms and you say, well, a team on no budget who finishes mid-table, you could argue they're the best ever team because they had no budget. So I do appreciate the question, but I think for the purpose of what we're talking about, you can't go past this team.
Politician. Get out. You don't even support City. Mate,
I just want to say, I feel dirty. I'm like, mate, I was talking so passionate about this club and I feel so dirty. But anyway, go.
Ari, go on. Give us the player and fucking question everything about it.
Player. Yeah, well, I was probably going to go Kyle Walker, but I'll refrain from doubling up. I reckon I'm going to bend the rules again, and I'm going to once again fuck off Damien Duff. If you're watching, with all due respect, but also not, I'm going to move Joe Cole out to the wing, and I don't know if I'm going to take De Bruyne or David Silva to partner Lampard. I'm thinking, if you're thinking like probably De Bruyne, probably more of a goal scorer than Silva a little bit more of that advanced kind of playmaker. So I reckon probably De Bruyne is a little bit of a better player, I'd say, but I'm going to take David Silva. To partner Lampard in front of Makelele in that Chelsea team. So yeah, that's the one I would go with. If I was to question this, I mean, we obviously have superstar Raheem Sterling on the right hand side, that by far the best player in the team. I'm not saying that as a Chelsea supporter. If I was to question anything, you can question Fabian Delph. I also want to question Nicolas Otamendi. What was he good at?
Why are you there?
Look, he wasn't quick. Can he pass? No, I don't know.
Leadership comes in all shapes and sizes, and I think if you're in the trenches, who do you want next to you? A bloke who is no good at anything he does, but somehow he found his way there, the fighter, or someone who's been gifted everything on a silver platter. Mate, you want to be next to Otamendi. Why? Because he knows he's no good, so he has to fight and scrap and get every inch out of him, and he was a part of the greatest team of all time.
There you go. Lovely stuff. Can't say anymore.
Fucking hate this team, because this team just like like the Arsenal team is like the rivalry. The Chelsea team is like the new kids on the block. This team is like literally its ascension is my dissension. Like this team represents everything I hate, where the noisy neighbours took over the fucking neighbourhood and we've got a little shop at the end selling fizzy pop for £1.
I've got a question for you guys, actually, before you go, Pom. When you look, when this happened, right, this season, did you genuinely sit there and think, moving into 2023, that did you think that what was going to happen after this? Like, were you genuinely scared after this, or did you think, it's just another season, they'll move on?
Nah, because we beat them 3-2 at their home ground. Fucking Chris Smalling with the winner. I was like, we're fucking coming.
Michael Smalling.
Yeah, we were like, we're fucking coming. Enjoy your fucking tin pot title.
This was the first team that I looked at and was like, obviously, because the last time that we looked at in the United team, I was 4. So probably not really watching football that intently. This was the first team that I looked at and I was like, fuck, like this is a football team, like genuine, proper football team, like one that I didn't exactly know what the rest of like the next 5 years were going to hold for City, but what I did know is that in 5 years' time, we'd be speaking about this team, regardless, even halfway through the year. I mean, they won the league by like 20 points or something stupid like that. It made for a not so entertaining season if you want to look at it from a neutral's perspective, and even Chelsea weren't that great. So it was pretty dull in that aspect. But when you're looking at it from a pure like football like watching and football kind of enjoyer in a way, just so good, like good.
They were doing real life Football Manager, real life FIFA.
Yeah, just crap.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, KDB would make the United side. The idea of Kevin De Bruyne threading passes to Ronaldo playing off his man, Rooney playing off the last man. Like, I've never seen a guy like Kevin De Bruyne who can see a pass. Like, honestly, it's uncanny, it's supernatural. Like, Haaland, as good as he is, I think his first season, Haaland, any idiot could have done that with a sexy little smile and a bit of pace. Like, that guy threads it through. My question on this side is, Fazz, got to be harsh here because you've gone real full on, and I'm a proper Man United man, right? I was raised by my Mancunian pop, who used to tell me that it's not Liverpool out your rivals, it's Manchester City. That City, someone's got to win it. So I hate Man City. I hate them. Absolutely. I fucking hate everything about this shit stain of a club. Right now, my big thing is Centurion's amazing, but I was raised in a time that all 20 sides had a world-class player. Right? I would say, Fazz, in all objectivity, would you see that City won this title by 19 points, and that was versus us, who we had good players, but then you go down it. This was the biggest talent gap we've ever seen. I would say Man City's 2017-18 reserves would have probably finished top 4 as well. Do you feel that some of that, when the other boys have spoken, this was a very close league, that you've got to argue that goes against them, that they were never really challenged. We'll never really know how good this side is, but the others we can. They played the same era.
That's a good point, but I think you answered my answer in your sentence. Really, I think that just shows how good they were, by having that gap. You know, we're talking about, like you said, the question is the best team put together. It's not their fault that all the other teams were shit. Do you know what I mean? I think this team stands up in any single era just by the pure names and numbers. I'm not going to sit here and defend how they did it. I think, the money helps. The ridiculous. The names they've got are ridiculous. But the reality is the best team assembled. This is like a Legends 11. Like it's wild. And what you're saying in regards to the Manchester United Man City rivalry, mate, this other than people who've grown up with it, this Man City team becoming like this made it a rivalry, in my opinion, as far as a neutral supporter watching who's got no dog in either fight of Man City or Man United. This made it interesting because prior to Man City being any good, I would always consider it was United, Liverpool, United, Arsenal, United, So this really put that Manchester rivalry on the map for non-Manchester supporters.
Fair call. Fucking honestly, all 11 names sick of me. But I will humble myself and will say I'm pretty sure I speak for all of us that if we had that money, I fucking wouldn't give a shit. I wouldn't give a shit.
Can confirm.
But the Liverpool guys died, so I thought the fairest way to do it is we'll just skip straight to saying something about them. And I was quite hot on them. I fucking hate Liverpool. I hate them second most, right? I hate them second most. I will say all the arguments I've had against City, I'll give a plus for this side. And this side did the unthinkable. That they are the only side in recent memory that have pushed a side that seemingly can't be stopped. And that 2019-2020 season, I found it hard because it was like literally having a choice between 5 guys you've met at the bar to run through your wife. Like, who do you support in that battle? Do you know what I mean? I didn't want anyone to win. And what they did, I think, is remarkable. You've just seen the City side. This side fucking beat them. I mean, he's got Jordan Henderson and Wijnaldum holding the midfield up, propped up by Fabinho. And can you imagine being a Brazilian with any self-respect choosing to play CDM? Like, all that fucking talent in the world, and you play central defensive midfield. Jesus Christ. This, for me, is in levels of difficulty of what we're talking about, which I think is part of greatness.
Yeah.
You have to have Liverpool in the conversation. What they did,
Absolutely.
remarkable. They stopped a runaway train. They stopped and they gave hope. All 4 of us in this chat have hope because of this side. That they gave us hope that it can be done. And if there was a player that I'll pick, Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'd replace Wes Brown after defending him for the last hour. Trent Alexander-Arnold, come on down.
This season, you're right. The hope is the big one, and I think even last season, Arsenal probably gave us all a bit of hope as well before what ended up happening, unfortunately for them. But this team, I don't want to offend Liverpool supporters or anything, but this was akin to Collingwood winning the Premiership. For those wondering what to be against Liverpool, I didn't want Liverpool to win it at all. As I mentioned before, my allegiance with Man City is purely because every person I grew up with went for Liverpool, so I was just like, whatever. But I tell you what, special. I think the longer we talk about Manchester City in 10, 20, 30 years' time, this will get better and better, this win. Because this will be folklore. Hey, Granddad, tell me about the time. Man City won 10 leagues, but what happened this one? What happened there? Tell us about it, Granddad. This is folklore this season. I think that's special. Again, I'd like to preface by saying we're not talking about the most romantic fairy tale season of all time. We're talking about the best team of all time. So yes, they did beat City, but pound for pound, what a season they had. I actually think on balance, and this is going to sound controversial. I think balanced. This is one of the most balanced sides that you've seen. There's really not a weakness. We spoke about all the other teams. Whether it be Delph, whether it be Damien Duff, whether it be whoever, Wes Brown. You mentioned this team actually is solid everywhere, and you can pull a player out and you analyze him individually. Jordan Henderson, was he as good as what people thought? But then together, it was something special. Yeah, well, fair call, Lachyjack. Yeah. Special. The only word, special. That's the only word you can describe it.
Ari, your thoughts on this side?
Well, as I mentioned before, my brother is a very passionate Liverpool supporter. So as much as the whole sibling rivalry is the priority, when I saw them get a run on earlier on, I mean, they won the Champions League the year before, right? So I saw him experience that, and I was like, oh, that's felt good for him. And then when I saw them get a run on early on in this year, and I thought, there's no way, no one's stopping this team. Like, they're so good. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna kind of vicariously live through my brother for all the success that year. But yeah, this team is just like, I think balance is a right word, because the way Klopp had them set up, it was essentially playing with 5 attackers with Alexander-Arnold and Robertson pushing up alongside Mane and Salah. And that midfield was literally just there to just run, fill space, tackle, and then pass the ball to the more technically gifted and the players who can actually do damage in the final third. I think Firmino's an extremely underrated player in this team because of maybe like in specifically when we're talking about this team, because his ability to drop deep and almost play similarly to how Bergkamp played when partnering Henry. Firmino was basically that backboard, that extremely technically gifted backboard to just bounce the ball to Mane and Salah, flick the balls in behind, and then they would do the rest. So, yeah, so good. If I was to take a player, Damien, apologies once again.
Oh, mate, you've done him dirty.
Well, think about it. I can't take anyone out of the defence, conceding 15 goals. The midfield's good. Sorry. And then, I mean, I was going to move Salah across to the left, but I think Mane can do a more than capable job. I think he was at times in the stretch of when they were playing together in that front three, he was probably better than Salah at times. So peak Sadio Mane is so good. So so Duff, but Mane on the left wing for me.
Damien Duff, stiff. Fucking win a title for the first time in 60 years, and you're fucking ousted, buddy. Get fucked.
Once again, mate.
Get fucked, Damien.
Get better. Not my fault. Also, he's a former Melbourne City player, so have to take some revenge out.
Hello. Which one of these miscreants gets in that Arsenal invincible side?
One of the miscreants who gets in, and I know they concede, I think what they concede like 32, 33 goals this season off the top of my head. Alisson for me. But Alisson for me for Jens Lehmann. I just can't forgive Jens for what he did in the Champions League final. I know it was the Champions League final and it's not the Premier League, but I just can't forgive him for it. But Alisson for me, man, is an absolute freak. He is a leader in that back half, and imagine trying to have to deal with Joe Gomez being your centre back.
Yeah.
Imagine being Brazilian and being a goalkeeper.
I think he's a brilliant keeper. I think he's brilliant.
He is. Your thoughts on this team?
They scored 99 points. Second most amount of points in Premier League history. Incredible football team. Jurgen Klopp, genius. And they've got the best player in the world in Sadio Mane. You know what? I think that the one thing that really stood out for me is you look at the midfield trio, right? Henderson, Fabinho, and Wijnaldum. And no one would have them anywhere near the midfield of any of the other teams, right? But their fitness levels and their ability to win duels, so underrated. So underrated. It's just such an important facet of the game. And Henderson's thing as well is he ran all day. He would run all day. He would cover and cover and cover and cover. And again, another player where his leadership qualities can't be underestimated. That midfield trio, their dual winning ability and their capacity, their aerobic capacity couldn't be undersold as well. So to score 99 points in a Premier League season, incredible achievement.
You know what I'll always say? We talked about hope with this Liverpool side, and just so you know, it hurts me to say anything nice about them. Do you remember they got absolutely dicked about 5 games before the end when the title race was neck and neck by City? They got absolutely pulled apart. City destroyed them. And I always think there's 2 things about that. One, they showed amazing resilience to win the league after that, because City were coming like a steam train. They were coming and they battered them. We've seen sides wilt when that's happened. And the other, pains me to say this because it is kind of funny. They finally break the title duck and no one's allowed to be there at COVID. It's funny at the time. The more I thought of it, though, I think United have gone a barren spell. I hope people can be at Old Trafford, to see that, because that must have been horrible. Fair play to them. And they might never do it again. Let that sink in. City are that good. It might never fucking happen again.
Well, it took them 20-odd
title for the next 50 years.
It took them 20-odd years to get back there. So nothing's guaranteed.
No, it's not.
And it's also sorry, I was just going to quickly say it's a bit ironic that the final, one of the last games played in front of crowds in that 2020 year was the Liverpool versus Atletico Madrid game at Anfield. So a little bit of irony in that.
And I know exactly what you're saying, Pom, because witnessing the crowds when West Ham lifted the European Conference League trophy and brought it back to London and saw the crowds there, it would have just been it's just a travesty to miss that. So I do feel for the Liverpool fans to not get to see their team lift a trophy like that. So
yeah, I mean, I was upset, but I didn't lose much sleep. I'll be honest, but I'll be honest. But let's pick the team. So what I was going to do is, to make it fair, is you're allowed one non-negotiable. So every team is represented. So I'll start with Paolo. Arsenal, one non-negotiable. We're going to play 4-3-3.
Now I'm just going to get my team up here that I selected because I've got a few. Rio Vieira. Well, I made him a caveat. So it's Thierry Henry.
Are you playing him centrally?
I'm going to play him out on the left. I know he played out on the wing when he first came to Arsenal, and he kind of struggled there in the early parts. And then Wenger said, "No."
That makes it quite sad because that means that it's going to be hard to get Damien Duff in this side.
While you do that, I'm just going to go silent for one moment, gentlemen. Apologies. I'll be silent for one moment.
All right. Thierry Henry. Ari, give me a Chelsea player that's a non-negotiable for this 11.
Does it? Okay. Well, I think conceded the best defensive record in the Premier League has to have at least one, probably even two Chelsea defenders. As much as I would love to pick Lampard, as much as the striker position is just waiting for Didier Drogba to fill it if I want it, I'll put JT at centre half. I feel like best defensive record.
Makes me happy that, because I've got to say he should be in it. John Terry's probably the best strike defender in this conversation. Close to.
Yeah,
it's a good call.
Yeah, I'll go JT.
Fazz, City. Surely Fabian Delph left back.
Otamendi and John Terry. What a centre back partnership that is.
I'm gonna go KDB.
Good call.
Oh, what player?
Great call.
Yeah.
Oh, that he's what's it called? And he's fucking Dutch. So I mean, he's whatever it is. The pretend Belgium, pretend German, as we call them. So it's a small D.
It's a bit harsh.
Yeah, it's one of the idiosyncrasies of the Belgians. I suppose United. Is it Wayne Rooney? Is it Wayne Rooney or CR7?
The only player up for selection that's won a Ballon d'Or in the year.
Yeah, it has to be. If you don't put him in there, he's going to get put in there anyway. So.
Yeah, you see, that's my theory. Cheat.
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh, before anyone does it, I'm doing it. Wayne.
Yeah.
Rooney on the wing.
Cristiano Ronaldo, the go. Okay, we've got to agree, I suppose, on a Liverpool player between us. Who are we going with? I mean, Mo Salah was probably stiff to win a Ballon d'Or, but he didn't win it.
Alisson
stiff. Yeah,
Alisson?
yeah.
Alisson in goal. I think Alisson is like personally speaking, I think he's one of the best keepers ever. I think he's definitely
better than Petr Cech, though.
Yeah. What about TAA?
I would say he probably is better than Cech. He's bought they play with 11 players. Like, I think it's really underestimated his ability to play with his feet. Or yeah, you could go Van Dijk, but then again, Rio
over Rio. Come on, let's be real.
I think it's out of Alisson or TAA, to be honest.
Well, thinking of other right backs, we got Lauren,
Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker put fucking Mbappe in his pocket.
Yeah, so you're probably going Alisson then. But Jesus, stiff on Cech. It just goes to show how poor that Liverpool team was, actually.
Over Salah, I can't believe I'm doing this. Over Salah, chat.
Well, I reckon if Henry was up front, you could put Salah.
Well, we can change it.
Yeah, Paolo stuffed us by putting
Yeah,
Well,
three
he's not,
there.
he's not here.
Let's
He's not
change it. Like,
here.
I'm happy with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Has
want
to
more
be.
salary. I don't want him in the team, and I'm doing that. I don't want. I'd love to do this with no Liverpool. Okay,
Yeah.
right. While we wait for Paolo, let's have the discussion. The goalkeeper, then. I think it's Cech or Alisson.
Yeah,
And I
check
think
out
we can
Alisson for me.
cancel the other two.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Checo Allison.
Say Lockie. Even though I'm a United fan, I'm a man of fairness.
I'm leaning towards Czech personally.
Yeah, Cech at this stage, 15 goals. I can't believe I'm selling him to you.
I know. Trust me, I love Czech.
The guy was an animal. It was like having a brick wall. It was like, you know, when you put jumpers for goalposts and you play, you've got a brother, right?
Yeah.
You know what it's like? You're taking penalties and your brother lies and says it goes in. It was like having that. The guy couldn't concede.
Yeah. Look. Yeah. Check and go in. That's fine by me. Absolutely.
And I'm an old man, and I'm sure Fazz will agree with me here. Fuck playing with your feet. You're a goalkeeper. You save goals.
Yeah.
Have a ball playing centre back. Get a midfielder that runs.
I can't believe there's a West Ham and a Man United fan trying to convince a Chelsea fan that Peter Cech is the better.
I
It's a
feel
weird
disgusting.
timeline, yeah. We'll put Czech. I'm happy.
Has
More
to
than
be
content.
Czech.
More than content.
I feel disgusted in myself.
maybe I'll defend myself by saying I think obviously I've seen Alisson play far more in his prime. So, like what I remember of Czech, he's probably post 2012, 11, like properly, where he probably did most of his prime, obviously in that team that we discussed. And obviously I've seen Alisson his whole career essentially, but Czech in, more than happy with that. More than happy.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, we're at the
Stop betrayal,
centre-backs.
Lachyjack.
We got centre backs, right? So we got John Terry, and I mean, this is tough, isn't it? We got Sol Campbell. You got to mention him, Kolo Touré, Rio Ferdinand, and Amanda Vidic, Otamendi, Company, Gomez, Van Dijk, Carvalho. It's tough, isn't it? I mean, who will we pick? I mean, I think Rio Ferdinand. I think Rio Ferdinand was before his time. Every centre back is Rio Ferdinand now. But Rio Ferdinand was everyone was John Terry. Rio Ferdinand was the first Rio Ferdinand.
I think, Rio for me.
Ari, centre back.
I'd be happy with putting. I think I'm going to be the one that has the more recency bias out of everyone here, just purely because I'm an infant. So I think Van Dijk is exceptional, but if the consensus is Rio, I'm more than happy to put Rio in. I think he's definitely worthy of the team without a shadow of a doubt.
Paolo, centre back. We're having a debate. Who do you think should be partner in John Terry?
Yeah, I think what Ari said there. I've got Rio in the 11 that I selected. You can. I loved Vidic. I love the Mania.
Yeah.
You need
I
the
love
bulk.
the Mania Vidic. I'm going to say Rio though. His qualities were just.
His name is Rio, mate. Honestly, I mean, he comes from the best defensive side of all time as well.
Well,
As I said, I had Rio in my selected 11, so he's got to be the one that I go with. I can't argue against it.
I'm not having a guy with a ponytail in this team.
Hey, look, mate, by all means.
As the closest thing to a Balkan that we've got here, I feel like I should have defended Vidic a little bit more, but it's what it is.
Yeah. The only reason I didn't go Vidic is brilliant, but next to John Terry, he needs a ball playing.
Absolutely.
Defender. Right, okay, we'll go left back. I think this should be easy because I think Ashley Cole, controversial, might be the best left back of all time.
Yeah.
Cut and dry, I think.
Good old Cashley.
Well, I mean, if an Arsenal fan agrees with it, right?
Oh, I do. No, he's fantastic.
But the thing, like, we've got to take into account as well, it was the best defensive team of all time, and they're going to have 3 in the back five. Like, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
The right back's an interesting conversation because you've got some geniuses here. I mean, you've got Lauren, Wes Brown. I mean, I think we should
Carl
stop
Walker.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got to be
Carlo
Kyle Walker.
Vieira or Trent Alexander-Arnold or Kyle Walker. I think this is... I find it hard to look past the fact that Kyle Walker beat Mbappe.
I'm Kyle Walker. I had him slotted straight in. I didn't even think about it, to be honest.
I think if we're talking about consistency at the top level, Kyle Walker's been exceptional for about 6 years. Whereas Trent's obviously had the slight dip recently. I think.
Do you also think, Ari, as well, like there's always, especially with the right back positions, there's always a knock on one of these guys, either offensively or defensively. It's one.
It's very hard to be balanced as a fullback, to be the perfect player. Yeah.
He's just all round.
Yeah. I think Walker finds that mix perfectly, I think.
And that's why you're looking at your team. You've got Cristiano Ronaldo up there. Do you really need your right back to be as attacking as TAA, for example? You know, like...
I actually think Kyle Walker is the closest to Gary Neville.
Mm.
In the terms of... Yeah, in the terms of Kyle Walker's just incredibly fast. So I think that goes against him.
Yeah.
Because people think he is too attacking. TAA, I think, is a CDM. I don't think he is a right back. I think Kyle Walker is the best right back, even over Wes Brown, Lauren, who was fantastic. Vieira was a Champions League winner and a title winner. I just think Kyle Walker is complete. Complete.
Yep. Pop him in.
All right, so we've got our cam. This is the hardest one, isn't it?
These two are the absolute hardest.
Yeah.
These
I
two.
feel like there's going to be a lot of disagreeing. Yeah.
Fat Frank.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go with the CDM first. We'll go with the CDM, the guy protecting our back four. So we've got a plethora of choice. We've got Vieira, Carrick, Hargreaves, Fernandinho. You've got freaking Fabinho, who we've mocked, but you could have Wijnaldum there. He plays there. And then you've got Claude Makelele, man. Like Makelele as well. Like World Cup winner.
I mean, I'm going to go straight into bat for my boy. I feel like the only player that available to pick that has a literal role named after him because of how good he was at it. I feel like he probably might not get picked, but I feel like I just feel like he's so underrated. Like, I think he's so good. Like, going back and watching and reading and listening to everything said about him, like, one of the more underrated players, especially in that mid-2000s Premier League era, I think.
But to be fair, he's just a French Keane.
Yeah, but it's not called the Keane role, is it? It's called the Makelele role.
It's because he's Irish and people are countryist. That's why if Keano was Italian, he would be regarded as the best of all time. But Keane's not even in the conversation. He didn't play. So, Paolo, where are you going with?
Are we even really comparing Patrick Vieira to Claude Makelele? is that even, when you ask, if you go up to someone in the street, right, and you ask them, Patrick Evra or Claude Makelele, they are not even going to know who Claude Makelele is.
Mate,
it has to be Vieira.
Asking the wrong people.
It has to. Well, obviously, if you go up to someone on the street, no one knows who Claude Makelele is. Makelele is a fantastic footballer, but I mean, trying to get him in over Patrick Vieira. I mean,
but bias aside, I feel like I had to jump in and defend my boy. But bias aside,
that's only natural. That's only
Vieira is one of the
Fazz, you're a centre back, right?
Yeah.
Who would you rather have protecting you, Makelele or Vieira?
Michael Carrick. Ooh. But look, I'm going to stand by what I said, and I think unfortunately, when you put this team together and you put it out, if you had Carrick in there, it'd stand out like a sore thumb, and any person who saw it would say Michael Carrick because he is the most underrated player of all time. So it can't be Carrick. I'd be going with Vieira personally.
See, I hate to do it as a United man. You see, I was Vieira straight away. I wish we had Keane here to have an. And I agree though, Makelele, incredible.
Oh, look, we're talking about the best
to pick from.
Yeah, I was saying, we're talking about the best teams of all time, or in the Premier League here. Like, it's not like,
looking tasty though, isn't it? Cech,
this
Terry,
one.
Ferdinand, Cole, Walker, Vieira, Kevin De Bruyne, Salah,
I'm saying it.
Ronaldo.
This has to be Lampard.
It has to be
Fat
Has to
Fran.
be.
Well, I mean, yeah, I want to say Scholes here, but Fat Frank. Yeah, well,
211 goals.
you can't argue with it, can you? I mean, that is that team could be the that team could be the greatest team of all time. That we want a team that competes with City. That team competes with City.
How many points does that team at everyone at their peak? Does that team win every single Premier League game, like 3-0?
It'd go close.
Probably.
And it's a good mixture. Actually, it's a good mixture of all the teams. Like I was worried when we were going to do this, is there going to be like 6 from one of the teams? But it's actually a good. Like I think Chelsea have 4, so that's a
United
good
have
mix.
1.
I think we've done well across eras as well. That's been the good thing too.
I feel that team could be coached by that team could be coached by Sam Allardyce and Ollie could tactically sort that side out. Chat, everyone who stuck around, 22 of you have stuck around from start to finish. That has fluctuated around there, which I think you guys are mental. But big shout out to Paolo, Ari, and Fazz for joining us. Love you all to pieces. We'll definitely do more of this because I think it's good fun. But thank you, everyone. Enjoy your night. Enjoy your weekend. What a game. I'll post this and you can all argue it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.